Alright, ready? Okay. Did any of you come to college expecting to homebrew beer with your professor for research? I sure did not. That's exactly what I'm doing this quarter. As an architect, you must fully understand processes that take place within buildings to fully design beautiful and functional architecture, which doesn't leave a lot of room for time for writing informative speeches. In the case of my current design studio, our project incorporates a brewery. So to begin designing, we first had to fully understand the brewing process, which I'm going to share with you all today. From the history, the actual process, and its ever-growing prominence in Californian culture. For a brief history lesson, beer is believed to be a key part of the human settlement and agriculture development in the Neolithic period in 12,000 BC. But the first scientifically found proven traces of beer were on pottery from Mesopotamia in the 7th century BC, 5,000 years later, stated by Ignacio Cabras in his article Beer Brewing and Business History. During this time, beer was also very big in Egypt, where it was believed it was where it was commercialized. This is also attributed to the pubs in the monasteries in Scandinavia and Germany, who also introduced hops to the process. Though it wasn't until the Industrial Revolution where it is believed beer became fully commercialized, with the invention of the hydrometer, thermometer, and the steam engine. So how does this process actually work? To start with the ingredients, here's a full kind of overview diagram of the full process, but we'll start with just the ingredients, which consist of grain, which is usually a malted barley that's kiln dried and germinated, which is the malting part. And then additionally, you need lots of purified water, hops, and yeast. The process begins by mixing the purified water and the barley malt in the mash tun where the starches are converted to sugars. The grain is separated from the remaining mixture called wort and then can be used for feed for farm animals. And the resulting wort is then put into another copper kettle for pasteurization, where it's boiled. At the beginning of the boil, the bittering hops are added, and throughout the boil, more hops for the aroma are added, and in the end, there's flavoring hops. The wort is then cooled to an optimal temperature and sent through a series of whirlpools to separate any remaining solids, and now it is ready for fermentation, which can take as little as 2 days up to a few weeks, according to mainbrew.com. During fermentation, the yeast is added, which is created in a lab, and it converts all the sugars into CO2 and alcohol. During this process, additional hops are also added for flavor. Lagers are fermented at about 45 degrees with the yeast on the bottom, and ales are fermented with the yeast on top up to 70 degrees. In the final phase, the beer is filtered again and further carbonated in the bright tank for 3 to 4 weeks where it matures to perfection. The beer is now ready to be kegged and packaged, which is a whole other process that we don't have time for today. Rather, we'll discuss the role of breweries in California. One of the many awesome parts about California is that the roots of craft brewing all began here. Kenneth Elzinga's 2015 article, Craft Beer in the United States, tells the story of a man by the name of Fritz Maytag, who saved a failing brewery in 1965. It was the only remaining what would soon to be called craft brewery in the nation, nearly destroyed by the watered-down lager of the Miller Coors Corporation. Maytag rebranded the Anchor Steam Brewery and soon brewed the first ever American India Pale Ale, or IPA, saving the craft beer industry and inspiring dozens of other breweries like Sierra Nevada, now the third largest brewery in the nation. Craft brewery. A similar success can be seen by our own Firestone Walker Brewery, which has benefited immensely from recently redesigning the 805 label and not changing anything else. Also, San Diego's Ballast Point Brewery has expanded their business exponentially in the past few years, putting them the 13th largest overall brewery in the U.S., found in this BrewersAssociation.org's top 50 U.S. breweries list. And since their recent buyout from a corporation, Ballast Point is not considered a craft brewery anymore. However, they're still producing very quality beer. I was actually fortunate enough to visit one of their breweries for a studio field trip with my architecture class, and was able to get an insight onto the whole process. And so these are the mash tuns and the boiling kettles pictured here. So pretty massive at their scale of production. And I'll also get to go actually tomorrow to the Firestone Walker Brewery up in Paso. So I highly recommend you guys go on one of these tours, since they're usually free and they're actually very interesting and insightful. So even if this presentation didn't inspire you to start your own home brew operation, I hope you learned something new about the process of beer making or the history and its major role in California.